Hare Krishna. Right, let's make a start. Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Giravardhari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Jaya Giravardhari Yashodanandana Rajjana Ranjana Yashodanandana Rajjana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jayo Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jayo Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Agyan Timirnasya Gyanajana Shalakya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Nama Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Samrupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatanitam Tam Najim Sadhvetam Savadutam Krishna Setam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deen Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kant Radha Kant Namastute Tapta Kanchan Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavan Eshwari Rishabhanu Sutadevi Pranmami Hari Priye Pancha Kalpatrubhyascha Kirpa Sindhuvevacha Patitana Pavnebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namo Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasti Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukham Proti Vachalam Pangum Langite Grinyat Kirpataham Vande Shri Gurun Tintaranam Paramananda Madam Chitanesham Hari Om Tassat Narayam Namaskritya Naram Cheva Naruttamam Devim Saswati Vyasam Tato Jamaduriyat Nasta Preshabdrish Nitabhaksya Bhaktitum Shloka Bhakti Bhavati Nestiki Hare Krishna. So thank you for joining. We shall continue chapter 12. And last time we were talking about taking anxiety. We will always have anxiety one way or the other. It just cannot be avoided. We have three types of miseries. Adi Devika, Adi Bhautik, Adi Atmik. Miseries are there. They're always keeping us anxious, either all at once or one at a time or two at one time, but there is always anxiety. So if you must take anxiety for Krishna, like Srila Prabhupada did. All his projects were based on Krishna, building devotees, building temples, preaching programs like that. So, and we also talked about using our reversals in life and use them for opportunities. There's always a door. There's usually a bigger door. One door closes, a bigger one opens, and use that as an opportunity. Maybe what you were doing was not conducive for your bhakti. Somehow or other you were wasting time, or doing something that was not in the right way. So, if there's a reversal coming in your life, then use that to improve yourself. Excuse me. And you was talking about the 4 regulations that they are there to release us from Maya, because those things that we do, they actually give Maya opportunity to grip us. So like that. So let's continue. Verse 29. Iti ragya upadishya vipra chatako vidaha labdha pachitya sarve pratichak muk svakan grahan. So it is thus ragya or ragya unto the king, upadishya having advised, vipra persons well versed in the Vedas, jatak kovidha persons expert in astrology and in the performance of birth ceremonies, and labdha apachityaha, those who had received sumptuously as remuneration. All of them, sarve prati jagmuk, went back, svakan, their own grahan, houses. So those who were expert in astrological knowledge and in performance of the birth ceremony instructed King Yudhishthira about the future history of his child. Then, being sumptuously remunerated, they all returned to their respective homes. So the Vedas are the storehouse of knowledge, both material and spiritual. But such knowledge aims at perfection of self-realization. In other words, the Vedas are the guides for the civilized man in every respect. Since human life is the opportunity to get free from all material desires, miseries, it is properly guided by the knowledge of the Vedas in the matters of both material needs and spiritual salvation. The specific intelligent class of men who were devoted particularly to the knowledge of the Vedas were called the Vipras, or the graduates of the Vedic knowledge. There are different branches of knowledge in the Vedas, of which astrology and pathology are 2 important branches necessary for the common man. So the intelligent men, generally known as the Brahmanas, took up all the different branches of Vedic knowledge to guide society. Even the Department of Military Education was also taken up by such intelligent men, and the Vipras were also teachers of this section of knowledge, as were Dronacharya, Kripacharya, etc. The word Vipra or Vipar mentioned here is significant. There is little difference between Vipras and the Brahmanas. So what is the difference? The Vipras are those who are expert in karma-kand or fruity activities, guiding the society towards fulfilling the material necessities of life, whereas the Brahmanas are expert in spiritual knowledge of transcendence. This department of knowledge is called Gyan Kand. And above there is Upasana Kand. The combination of Upasana Kand is a devoted service to the Lord, Vishnu, and when the Brahmanas achieve perfection, they are called Vaishnavas. So Vaishnava is seen as the highest above Karma Kand, Gyan Kand, Upasana Kand. Once you achieve the perfection, then you are called a Vaishnava. Vishnu worship is the highest of the modes of worship, elevated Brahmanas are Vaishnavas engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. And thus Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which is the science of devotional service, is very dear to the Vaishnavas. And as explained at the beginning of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, it is a mature fruit of Vedic knowledge and is superior subject matter above the three kants, namely Karam, Gyan and Upasana. So Vaishnava, being a Vaishnava is seen as a very high position. We are called Vaishnavas because we were worshipping Vishnu. It's other things, if you're worshipping the demigods like Karam Kant, like that, is not seen. Actually, it's an offense, to be honest, worshipping the demigods on their own in the Vaishnava society. And so what used to happen at that time, the Kshatriyas, they used to do yagyas, Karam Kant yagyas, because their goal really was to go to the heaven. That was the goal. If any of the ancestors made it to heaven, it was seen like as a great achievement. Even Arjun, up to one point, that his goal would have been heaven, and Krishna even enticed him that if you fight and if you win, you will get the kingdom. If you die, you will definitely go to heaven because you died while doing your duty, so that will take you to heaven. And this is what that was like the reward for the for the Kshatriyas, for the warriors, to die in battle and go to heaven. But in this instance, Arjun, he refused he said, I don't want any benefit of going to heaven or enjoying heavenly pleasures, because he didn't want to kill his family. He says, I don't want all that. So then Krishna had to step up a notch and go to the next stage, tell him why you're not really fighting for heaven, although you could, but that would be for your own sense gratification. But really, you're fighting to establish dharma. You're fighting my will. This is what I want. So, and then the Bhagavad-Gita came about in that process, because it's not about going back to heaven, it's going back to Godhead. And one other interesting thing is that the Brahmanas who are there, they have not tried to conceal anything. They have complimented so much the newborn Maharaj Parikshit, but they also told about how he's going to die, in an early age, so that they did not try to conceal anything in the hope that they will get, just say all the good things and get a lot of reward, and just take off, and then what will happen later time. But they have declared everything. They have admitted everything, submitted everything that is going to happen with the Maharaj. You find nowadays, if you go to astrologer, they will tell you all the good things. They try not to tell you the bad things. So anyway, like that. So amongst the Karma experts, the Jatak expert Vipras were good astrologers who could tell the future history of a born child simply by the astral calculations of the time, or Lagan. Such expert Jatak Vipras were present during the birth of Maharaj Parikshit and his grandfather. So Maharaj Yudhishthira. So Maharaj Yudhishthira awarded the Vipras sufficiently with gold, land, villages, grains, and other valuable necessaries of life, which also include cows. There's a need of such Vipras in the social structure, and it is the duty of the state to maintain them comfortably as designed in the Vedic procedure. Such expert Vipras, being sufficiently paid by the state, could give free service to the people in general and thus this department of Vedic knowledge could be available for all. So that's 29. So it's mentioned that the Vedic system was very practical to help everyone progress nicely. But it was a long process with many different stages. Srila Prabhupada has given us the highest level following in the footsteps of the gopis. That's the highest. There's nothing higher than that. That's the knowledge that we want. Srila Prabhupada, the process given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that process was followed by Mahaprabhu. To chant the holy names of Krishna, we need help spread this cream of knowledge to as many people as we can. So more than Vipras, we need Vaishnavas who can spread the knowledge. Like you have Srila Prabhupada's book marathon coming up. So this knowledge for that month is, devotees are out there, Vaishnavas are out there, spreading that knowledge in the shape of the books, and to many people as possible. The people who have never heard of Krishna consciousness, they never heard of Krishna even. So to get the message out there in the cold weather that comes in December. So number 30. Sa esha loke vikyataha prikshit iti yat prabhu purvam drishtam anudayayan priksheta nareshav iha. So saha hi esha, in this loka world, vikyataha, famous, prikshit, one who examines, iti, thus, yat, what, prabhu, O my king, purvam, before, drishtam, seen, anudhayayan, constantly contemplating, prikshita, shall examine, nareshu, onto every man, iha, here. So his son would become famous in the world as Prikshit, or the examiner, because he would come to examine all human beings in his search after the personality whom he saw before his birth. Thus he would come to constantly contemplate on him. So Maharaj Prikshit is always thinking of the Lord in his forehand form at that time when he saw him in the womb. He's always searching who was that personality. He's looking at everyone's faces. Is he him? Is he him? Who is it? So he's still in search. Maharaj Parikshit, fortunate as he was, got the impression of the Lord in the womb of his mother, and thus his contemplation of the Lord was constantly with him. Once the impression of the transcendental form of the Lord is fixed in one's mind, one can never forget him in any circumstance. Child Parikshit, after coming out of the womb, was in the habit of examining everyone to see whether he was the same personality whom he first saw in the womb. So even I think as a baby, think, oh, why is he looking at me? He's just examining that. Is this the person? But no one could be equal to or more attractive than the Lord. And therefore he never accepted anyone. But the Lord was constantly with him by such examination, because he's absolute. He's there with, in your thoughts, he's there with you. And thus Maharaj Parikshit was always engaged in the devotion service of the Lord by remembrance. Wow. So Srila Jiva Goswami remarks in this connection that every child, if given an impression of the Lord from his very childhood, certainly becomes a great devotee of the Lord like Maharaj Parikshit. One may not be as fortunate as Maharaj Parikshit to have the opportunity to see the Lord in the womb of his mother, but even if he is not so fortunate, he can be made so if the parents of the child desire him to be so. There is a practical example in my personal life in the connection. So Srila Prabhupada is saying, my father was a pure devotee of the Lord, and when I was only 4 or 5 years old, my father gave me a couple of forms of Radha and Krishna, In a playful manner, I used to worship these deities along with my sister, and I used to imitate the performances of neighboring temple of Radha Govind. By constantly visiting these neighboring temple and copying the ceremonies in connection with my own deities of play, I developed a natural affinity for the Lord. So what is for a child is just play, because this is what children do. They play, they mimic, they play. But eventually you keep doing the play, it becomes affinity to you, become attached to it. My father used to observe all the ceremonies befitting my position. Later on, these activities were suspended due to my association in the schools and colleges, and I became completely out of practice. But in my youthful days, when I met my spiritual master, Śrīmad-Bhakti Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, again I revived my old habit, and the same playful deities became my worshipful deities in proper regulation. This was followed up until I left the family connection, and I am pleased that my generous father gave the first impression, which was developed later in the regulative devotional service by his divine grace. So Maharaj Prahlad also advised that such impressions of a godly relation must be impregnated from the beginning of childhood. Otherwise, one may miss the opportunity of the human form of life, which is very valuable, although it is temporary like others. So so this is very interesting that children have to be introduced to worship and all the processes, ceremonies at a very, very early age. And so, those are blessed who are born into the Vaishnava family, because they go to the temple, see the process, they see the parents at home, whether it's their parents or their grandparents, they see them going through all these processes every day, and they naturally have an affinity to this, because they were introduced to this at a very early age. If you introduce someone when they have become teenagers, then it's so difficult, because they have so many other impressions, they have built other habits and attachments. It would be very difficult trying to get them to change to this, and maybe they have got association which is like against this kind of practice. So this is what teenagers are a very vulnerable age. We all been through it, and it's a very rebellious age, and whatever your friends, whatever company you're keeping, whatever their interests are suddenly your interest. What they eat is your interest, what they do is your interest, not know what your parents follow or eat or do. It's it's a crazy age. So you got to introduce the child at a very young age, and his affinity has to be strong. So when he gets to the teenage stage, that he's not easily moved. So it's mentioned that the impression of seeing Krishna was the first person Maharaj Parikshit saw in the womb. It created a deep impression in his consciousness. Soon as he came out of the womb, he was looking for that person he saw earlier. He was examining everyone. His name is Parikshit, which means the examiner. He was always examining everyone. He was always looking for Krishna, which we've discussed. So Srila Prabhupada mentions that children in the early stages of their life, whatever they see, touch, smell, and experience creates a deep impression in their consciousness, because it's a very impressionable age. Their consciousness is very pliable in the first 10 years of their life. Maharaj Parikshit became a pure devotee simply by always remembering Krishna. So first 10 years of life is what impressions are built, they can hold for the rest of their life. Children in the early stages of their life, whatever they see, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that for raising children, it's important that we create the proper sanskar and habits. Knowledge is not the criteria for raising children. It's not about educating children to get the proper habits, proper impressions, and proper culture. That is a priority. Then as they grow up into youth, then they get educated, and that education can be founded on proper habits, impressions, and culture to drive them forward. So if you simply educate children without the proper value system and habits or proper impressions, the knowledge alone will not do that. So the foundation has to be in dharma. It's the responsibility of the parent to bring up the children as Krishna conscious. Srila Prabhupada shares how the habits of impressions which were created in his earlier life through his parents were still there in his consciousness. And in his consciousness and became revived later on, although he had forgotten about them. So Srila Prabhupada admits that as he became a youth and he got different type of company, he was in schools and colleges, he actually was not that much involved. So children learn by following their parents. Srila Prabhupada was never forced to serve his deities. He was inspired to serve them. The children watch their parents. Now what parents say is what parents do, children follow. If you force children, then they become rebellious or repellent. Then becomes a distraction in their consciousness. They become rebellious for that reason. But they're repelled to those processes that the parents are pushing onto them. You show them by your actions, by your practice. So children can be raised into proper habits through play. Krishna would have 64 categories of games that he would play with his cowherd friends. Devotee parents need to raise the children through those 64 games that Krishna was playing. These games stimulate the children's senses, whether it's motor, emotions, intellectual, to mold them in every way. This is the beauty of Krishna's childhood pastimes. Devotees have created books on how to raise children through playing. So you find other religions doing the same thing. They put or enforce or reinforce impressions into children from very, very young age. They have educational system outside their normal education to teach them. I don't know, if they play any games as such, but they do have systems where children are expected to attend and build those impressions from a very young age. So yeah, so it definitely works because everybody's following the system, so it definitely works. So let's go to 31. So really, this is about the children. So Maharaj Parikshit, he had impressions from while he was in the womb, but like Prabhupada mentions that not every child will have that facility. So it's for us to help them build those impressions from a very young age. Saraj putro vivarde ashu shukal ivo dupaha apuruya manha pitrabehi kastabir ivsa anvaham. So as the moon in its waxing fortnight develops day after day, so the royal prince or Parikshit very soon developed luxuriantly under the care and full facility of his guardian grandfathers. So this is very nicely put. The growth and the development of Maharaj Parikshit is compared to the waxing of the moon. And Srila Prabhupada mentions that children flourish in a community. So it takes a community to bring up a child. They're exposed to the whole community, whether it's their extended families or the congregation. You see children coming to the programs. I remember this, the children from day one, as when they were born, and how how they've grown up within the congregation. Now they're doing, they are doing kirtan. They are playing the mridangas, playing the harmonium, and so like that. They have some of them even giving classes now, and we know them like from from day one, from babies, and so they have developed into the mode of Vaishnavism. That they're taking their sadhana seriously. They're serving Krishna just like their parents. It says the community has to be the right type to aid and facilitate the right type of growth. So this we know for us what is the right type of community. Others may have their right type of community which they follow, and then their children follow in a very at one point they can get very serious about that community's practices. People they won't accept the blood transfusion because it's against their religion. Even at young age, they will refuse to do that. And then you also get types of marriage. They will only marriage into their community, not outside. So there's so many things that because the children have the impression for a very young age that they continue to follow at a later or throughout their lives, in other words. So anyway, let's leave here. And I think Hinamati just gone. She had to leave. So let's stop sharing. And we'll go to Kiran Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Every morning I'm just astounded by the depth of wisdom that even a few verses can unearth. Yes, anxiety and crisis are a fact of life. None of us are born without anxieties and crises. Crises are inevitable. But those crises are there for us to grow from. Parikshit was experiencing a crisis, a life quake. And in the Caribbean, there is a hurricane brewing and has hit land. There is a crisis that is hitting a part of the world. Crises are there for all of us at different times. And I was impressed by what I heard many years ago when there was another hurricane in the Caribbean. And the Prime Minister said, crisis opens up opportunities where previously none existed. I repeat, crisis opens up opportunities where previously none existed. So crises are a gateway towards finding solutions to difficulties. But the Vedas that we have been given and are so fortunate to be a custodial of give us guides and signposts to how to manage those many crises that are inevitable in our lives. And so I think we have to take the opportunity with both hands to learn from the Vedas. And Indian tradition is steeped in astrology, because when you're born, people go and see a Brahmin about your time of birth, how the planets were aligned, etc. And so the same happened with Parikshit. Parikshit was a very exalted individual. They even knew that his lifespan was going to be short. But some of us do go to astrologers, they tell you all the nice bits and they don't tell you all the other bits. But astrologers have to be well trained to be able to tell you all those houses and different modules that are relevant for you and how they impact on each other. And so be mindful of going to a gypsy, because the gypsy will only see your arm, and you may have to cross her hand with lots of sterling. But be mindful of who we go and see. The Vaishnava community is a very, very important community that we are a part of. It teaches us the opportunities to perform Vaishnava rituals, culture, etc., and service. Serving Vishnu is the most important tradition that we have. And Arjun was told in no uncertain terms, choose. If you fight, you're a brave warrior. If you die, you'll be seen as still a brave warrior who died in battle. But if you run away, you'll be a coward. But you have a win-win situation. If you die, you go to heaven. If you win, you get the kingdom. Wow. What a great choice. Right. Arjun knew that in the end, that Krishna's wisdom was beyond and out of this world. And so we are part of that tradition, which is being imbibed that wisdom. We have talked of children. Children are the cornerstone and the pillars of society. They will be the ones who will grow up to be the future gurus, the future astrologers, and the future leaders of the community. And hence, we have to impart those wisdom and engage them in the community of the Vaishnava family very early. You can see the young ones growing in stature, in wisdom, in terms of their musical abilities. So they're a whole rounded individual with all those many, many qualities that Krishna lists that people should have. They have to be socialized very, very early into our communities, because if we don't get them before we have the impregnation, because the sanskars have to be part of the mother and father's desire to have a child, not just for the sake of it, but for a very higher principle. So those things have to happen very, very early. There were all those things about the Payarat and all those Garbhadan sanskars, etc. Those things are all part of our Hindu tradition. And as soon as children are born, we have to get them into the habit of, listening to the bhajan, listening to the talks, listening to the prayers. I mean, we sat with our children, engaged with us in arti, etc., in sitting down and doing prayers before eating. Those little things are so, so important. Start them early and you've got them for life. And so it's about, you change their habits, you change their consciousness, and hence their attitudes are affected, and automatically their behaviors become Vaishnava behavior. They become the right behaviors. And nowadays, I was at a funeral yesterday, and you can see even the Brahmins milking the situation. For one ceremony, this Brahmin charged 300 and nearly 400 pounds. For another ceremony, he was going to charge further. So it's become a cash cow. I've been at weddings where for a little bit of a ceremony there's this, and a little bit of ceremony there's, it's a business. Pure Brahmins are hard to come by. And those Brahmins who get dakshina, pure dakshina, they won't ask for money. You will give it to them because your heart will know what is rightfully theirs to give. So we are in the process of building the right community for the right type of people, for the right type of environment that the Vaishnava community has to grow into. Working with those children in a very, very careful, sophisticated, thought-through process is important, because you change their hearts and minds at the beginning and you have them for life. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Absolutely right, Prabhu. Right. So yeah, it does take a community, and the child learns by, like I said, not what parents keep saying, from what the parents are doing. Children from they are young, they're young people. They might look very young, babies, but their observation, the brain is working very well. The observation is very good. They see, my parents telling me this, but are they doing what they're telling me to do? So you have to, practice what you preach, and they watch that, and then they see the results, and where you're going, how serious you are, and then they will happily follow. But if you just want them to do something, but you don't, not serious yourself, then they don't follow. So very important that we also practice that ourselves properly, to be an example to the and a model to the child. Thank you, Prabhu. And yes, this about the gypsies. I think we've all experienced it, especially in our business place. Somehow they know when you're vulnerable, they turn up. And we had like this one particular gypsy. She came for many years, and I sort of, at one point I thought, she's just trying to make a lot of money. My father was like, he was very, saying, don't say anything wrong to her. Don't say anything wrong to her. Let her come inside. And then, because we let her come inside to the office, and then she would start taking advantage of the fact, first she would try and get money out of me, and then she would ask me if I could just leave the office. So she wants to private with my father. I don't know how they get their information. They somehow find the information, or at least half of it, and they just know how to deal with you, and get you to put your hand in your pocket every time. And they come at just at the right time when either something good's happening, they will come try some money out of you. Then it's like when my children were born, they're coming, oh, this, like Maharaj Pikshit, your child's going to do this, your child's going to do that, and you get so happy, bang, give them the money. Or someone's ill in the family, they come and say, I'm going to pray for them and they're going to be okay, just put your money in your hand, like, so yeah, please make sure my mom's okay, or whatever, here's the money, please take the money. So they're very, running a business, they're very clever like that, and they play on your sentiments very well. And they're not 100% accurate, but there's something they have, and they use it to run their business. So yeah, we'll all experience that. Praveen Mataji, Hare Krishna, would you like to add anything?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Pranam. Everything is covered. It's so nice, all close to Srila Prabhupada, how nicely Prabhupada ji has explained everything in the purports. Otherwise, we wouldn't have known. Like now, we have no faith in the, astrologers, because they're just like Krishna Prabhu has picked up, everybody's there just for money. And how these Vipras, Jatak Vipras, there were such good astrologers, and all the predictions they made about Parikshit Maharaj. And then Srila Prabhupada has explained how then Brahmanas are above Vipras, and then above them are the Vaishnavas. And then also glorified the Vedas again, which contains, Vedas is word of God and contains knowledge of spiritual and material life. But we can only achieve perfection of life by following Vedas under a spiritual master. So it's so nice. And now, like, I don't have any faith in any astrologer, but we're so fortunate. We got the Harinam, the holy name is the thing for us now. So rather than going after the priest, and impressions for like children, it is very, very important from the very young age. And I always say children are like sponges, they absorb everything. So whatever they see, they'll follow. And also we know the saying, actions should speak louder than words. So we can't tell our children do this, do that, and we do the opposite. And like I remembered when my children were young, because Ashok, he used to love to have Coke sometime, Coca-Cola, and I always used to say, no, you shouldn't drink it, you shouldn't drink it. And then my mom said, why are you stopping him? And other people's husband, they're drinking whatever, and he's only drinking Coke. And I said, no, because then children will want to drink it. Because even with the food, you have to be careful what you are eating and what you want. Like my daughter now, she's having Pepsi, and then my grandson is always, oh, I want to try it. Then she'll say it's medicine. I said, no, this is wheat. It is important. And like how Parikshit Maharaj saw Lord in the womb, and then he was constantly looking for the Lord, and he was engaged in the devotional service, remembering the Lord all the time. And also I remember from my grandson as well, because he was premature when he was born. He had few health problems, but he was finding more comfort in my arms. And I put it to, because I was chanting, I was doing my 16 rounds and listening to classes. So this is the power of the name. And then like again, another person, I think I did share, when my Prabhu was in hospital, and this English guy, he was bedridden, and he said, oh, I got a lot of energy when your wife came. Then I went to him and I said, well, no, this is the power of chanting. We chant, we'll take Lord's name. And I told him, I said, if you can't say the whole mantra, just say Hare Krishna and you will get the energy. So it is so nice, and like we have to share what we have with others. So, and like you picked on the book distribution. So this is the, our duty to spread Krishna consciousness so everybody can benefit. Like Sandeep told me, one of my neighbors in Nottingham, she's got a pancreatic cancer. So we are praying, and Sandeep went round and said, we will pray. And he said, yes, she needs all the prayers, And then he said then how his mother is lighting candles as well. So it was a comfort for me to know that at least even Catholics, they're thinking the same way, So like we are offering lamps. So now, because Nottingham Namahata, they've arranged offering lamps in the other, like the normal temples as well. So Saturday and Sunday. So I told Sandeep, go and offer lamp on her name as well. So this is the least we can do for the others. Hare Krishna, Guruji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji. Yeah, and Prabhupada, he again and again in his writings thanks his father, and who introduced him for very young age, because when he gone to university and college, then he might not have come into Krishna consciousness, because he was no longer, he was not involved. Had he not been involved before, he didn't have the impressions. And I think similar with us, we've had the impressions for a very young age. We may have not been serious for a while then, but we wanted to return to something, that there's a calling, there's a pull that brings us back to Krishna consciousness or God himself.
And the example of Srila Jiva Goswami, how he said he had the forms of Radha and Krishna, and how he used to imitate, his father and the temple ceremonies. I read that purport. Then my grandson came at the Sunday, and I told him as well, because I bought him Radha Krishna dolls, in Iskcon they're selling. So that I told him, I said, are you looking after your Radha and Krishna? Are you offering? Yes, I am, Nandi, So it's nice, because children, these are the ways we can introduce them. And then, because he does, like whenever he's eating something, and he'll tell his mom, oh, I'm going to offer to Krishna first now. So yeah, thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Very
Hare
nice.
Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Brother Anand?
Hare Krishna, everyone. My pronouns to all of you. Yes, it's so important to look after our children, not just look after their bodies, but look after their spiritual side as well, by giving the right environment in the home. And whatever we do, they will pick up, and they will unknowingly copy us, or if not now, somewhere down the line, these impressions will help them to revive the consciousness, just like Prabhupada had the training in the beginning, and later on, after finishing his studies, how he met his spiritual master. So, whatever impressions we have, they are there for a reason, and they do help us in some way. And like it was being said, that it's easy for, we hear so many times in lectures that for Indians it's easy because we have that kind of atmosphere at home. Some or other kind of puja or some other kind of ritual is followed in every household, whether it's a small scale or a elaborate one. So it's easy for us Indians. And when we see the people who are not from Indian background and they pick up things, then you think that it must be the impressions from the past lives that they pick up so nicely. Some of them are serving Krishna, the deities in the temples, much nicer than even we can think of ourselves to be doing They do it so nicely. So I should say, so they take their worship with a lot of dedication. And yes, to know about Parikshit Maharaj, how after seeing Lord once, he was looking for the Lord all around after getting birth. So once anyone has had the darshan of Krishna, nothing is going to be, attractive to that person. So that means that all of us, we still have our material desires, and a lot of material desires are a kind of anartha sometimes, I think, in my head, that they stop us, and we all have. That's why we are not finding it so easy all the time to do the sadhana, to do the worship. Any little problem, and it affects us. I'm talking myself personally here, and but on the other side, it's so nice to be able to hear these pastimes, and they give us so much hope that we don't know the causeless mercy is going to fall upon us, how, and it's going to lift us up. And listening to these pastimes in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam helps us to drive our daily sadhana from strength to strength. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. Yeah. So the pastimes are teaching us the principles of, like for today, for example, the details might not be the same for everyone, but the principle is the same. And this is why scriptures, that they are there forever, because the principles don't change. Principles always remain the same. This is the principle. If you want children to be in bhakti, teach them from very young age. For Maharaj Parikshit, he learned from very young age in the womb, but that's not going to happen to everyone. So we have to help the children. So the principle is there, is already there from a very young age, whether you're Maharaj Parikshit or anyone else. The principle is that you have to learn from a young age, build those impressions before the wrong impressions take over, and then it will be very difficult to embed or to press down the wrong impressions. So start with the good impressions, so they hold strong, and they may even repel the bad impressions that are trying to come in. You may think, no, this is wrong. You should know what is the priority, what is wrong and right from a very young age, so you can hold strong with your impressions. And then even if you do forget, there's a good chance when you mature intellectually, you may come back to it later on. So yeah, the principles are very important. And if somebody says, oh, the Vedas are out of date or the scriptures are out of date, they're not out of date. Maybe the methods, so the methods may work at that time, but the principles never change. Principles are always there. We just have to change the detail with the times, with the yugas. So they're worshipping God in every yuga, but the details just changed. But the principle is saying that you worship God, our creator. So thank you so much. And Granthra Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So we nearly completed this chapter, and next week at some point we'll have the overview. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.